You ever wake up in a cold sweat thinking someone just walked into your house only to find out they didn't just walk in, they stole part of it? That's exactly what happened to me. But what made it worse, 100 times worse, was when the thief didn't run. She stayed next door, smiled in my face, and had the nerve to call the cops on me. It all started 2 months after I moved into my new home. It wasn't in some huge city, just a quiet little suburban neighborhood where everyone waved politely. Dogs barked in unison, and the HOA ruled like some medieval court. I had bought a fixer-upper, and after weeks of work, plumbing, flooring, painting, I finally installed a brand new outdoor AC unit. It was expensive, and I was proud of it. I even snapped a picture of it installed out back just before locking up the cage around it. Enter Karen, the neighbor from 2 houses over. At first, she seemed harmless. Tight ponytail, pastel sweaters, and a habit of carrying a clipboard like she was born with it. She'd introduce herself at the mailbox, like, "Hi, I'm Karen, the acting head of our HOA." That acting part. She gave herself that title after the actual HOA chair went on a cruise. Anyway, I started noticing weird things. First, a ladder leaning against the side of my fence. Then, my AC making odd noises. I brushed it off until one hot Tuesday afternoon. I came home from work and felt like I'd stepped into an oven. My thermostat blinked, system offline. I ran outside. The AC unit was gone. Gone. Not damaged. Not tampered with. Completely vanished. The cage had been cut with bolt cutters. Concrete bolts ripped out. My first thought was someone had backed up a truck and lifted it while I was away. I called the police and filed a report. Then, 2 days later, while walking my dog, I passed Karen's backyard, and I froze. There, humming peacefully next to her siding, was my AC unit. Same model, same scuff on the corner, even had the same custom drain pipe I had installed. I stared at it like I was seeing a ghost. That couldn't be, could it? I took a photo. I knew I'd need proof, but before I could even knock on her door, she came out yelling, "Don't you dare trespass. That's my property." I hadn't said a word yet, and the next thing I knew, she was dialing 911 on me. The sound of sirens never made me nervous before, but standing there face to face with a woman who clearly stole my AC unit, hearing her say the words, "Yes, officer, he's threatening me and trying to steal my air conditioner," made my blood boil. I was speechless. Karen stood on her porch, one hand dramatically pressed to her chest, the other waving at me like I was some wild intruder. I hadn't even stepped onto her grass. 2 patrol cars rolled up 5 minutes later. I raised my hands calmly, already bracing for how insane this was going to sound. The first officer, Officer Daniels, stepped out and asked, "Sir, can we talk over here?" I nodded, trying to keep it cool. Meanwhile, Karen pranced down her steps, fake crying and saying things like, "He's been obsessed with me ever since I told him about the HOA rules." Seriously? I showed the officer the photo I had taken of my AC in her backyard. Then I showed him the photo I took weeks ago during installation, where the exact unit sat in my yard. Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any receipts?" Lucky for me, I'm one of those guys who keeps everything. I pulled up the email receipt from the HVAC company that installed it, serial number and all. As he looked over the details, the second officer went to speak with Karen. I couldn't hear the conversation, but the flailing arms, dramatic gasps, and occasional pointing in my direction told me she was laying it on thick. Then Officer Daniels asked, "Did you notice anything suspicious when the unit went missing?" I nodded. Yes, there was a ladder by my fence. Someone cut through the cage and stole the bolts. It was clearly removed with tools, not just vandalized. He made some notes. "You filed a report already 2 days ago." I replied, I even mentioned the possibility of it being taken by someone nearby. Didn't expect to find it this nearby, though. Meanwhile, The other officer came back and whispered something into Danielle's ear. Danielle's turned to me. She says you stole it from her, that it's been hers since last year. That's when I played my trump card. I had installed a Bluetooth tracker inside the metal cage just in case something like this ever happened. I pulled up the app. It pinged the exact location of my unit. Smack in the middle of her backyard. Daniel stared at the phone, then looked at her house, and just like that, the look on his face changed. But this was only the beginning. Karen wasn't done. In fact, what she did next nearly got me arrested. The morning after Karen's flyers hit every mailbox, I stepped outside and felt the shift in the air. My once friendly neighbors barely looked my way. One even yanked her kid by the hand and muttered, something about strange men and property crimes. I was furious, but also a little afraid. The damage Karen had done in just 24 hours was spreading like wildfire. That afternoon, I received a formal letter from the HOA. It read, due to multiple reports of harassment, threats, and violation of community standards, you are under investigation by the HOA board. Until the matter is resolved, all formal complaints regarding your behavior will be recorded and may result in fines, restrictions, or legal escalation. I couldn't believe it. Karen had weaponized the very HOA she claimed to act for, turning gossip into official concerns. And the worst part? None of it was true. I called the HOA office and asked to speak with the chairperson, Mr. Bradley, the man Karen said was on a cruise. He picked up immediately. "Oh, I've been hearing about you," he said in a cold voice. I took a breath. "Sir, I think you've been misinformed. Karen stole my air conditioning unit." I filed a police report, showed the officers proof, including a tracker that still pings from her backyard. He cut me off. "We've received Karen's statement, and she claims you stalked her, entered her yard, and are using technology to monitor her movements. She says the tracker is a surveillance device." "She's lying," I said flatly. "She's also the acting secretary of the HOA board," he replied. "We take these allegations seriously." I had never felt more trapped, but I wasn't about to roll over. I printed every receipt, every photo, every police report. I created a binder, and then I did one better. I contacted the HVAC company that installed my AC. They still had the technician's report, full documentation, and even photos of the unit installed. Then I emailed Mr. Bradley and attached everything. 3 days later, I was invited to a board meeting. I walked into a room full of people, neighbors, board members, and yes, Karen, sitting right at the front with her signature smirk, in a scarf tied way too tight for the weather. They gave her the floor first. She launched into a speech about fear, male aggression, and feeling unsafe. Then it was my turn. I opened my binder, dropped the receipts on the table, and displayed the Bluetooth tracker pinging her backyard in real time. The room went silent. As the Bluetooth tracker blinked on my phone screen, showing the exact location of my stolen AC unit in Karen's backyard, the silence in the HOA meeting room was deafening. Even Mr. Bradley, who had sounded so cold on the phone, was now leaning forward, squinting at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Karen's face flushed red. She stood up suddenly, pointing at me. "This is harassment. He hacked my system. That tracker is illegal. He's violating my privacy." Mr. Bradley raised a hand. "Miss Karen, please sit down." She didn't. Instead, she turned to the crowd. "You're all just letting a criminal manipulate you with tech tricks and fake documents. I told you he's dangerous." That's when I calmly placed the technician's report on the table. Here's the technician's statement, dated 2 weeks before the theft. Here are the photos he took the day he installed the unit. And here's the serial number matching the one in your yard. Then I looked directly at her. "You cut it out of my yard. You stole it. And then you framed me." Mr. Bradley looked through the papers, lips tightening. One of the board members whispered something to him, and he gave a short nod. I think we've seen enough. Karen didn't wait for a vote. She stormed out of the room, practically knocking over a chair, muttering to herself about lawyers and lawsuits, but it was over. The board held an emergency vote right then and there. They ruled in my favor, issued a formal apology, and suspended Karen from all HOA duties indefinitely. They also reported her actions to local law enforcement. The cherry on top. 2 days later, the police returned to her house, this time with a warrant. They retrieved the AC unit, matched the serial number, and confirmed it was mine. Karen tried to block them at the gate but was warned that if she interfered, she could be charged with obstruction. I got my unit back, but it didn't stop there. A week later, Karen was fined for theft, HOA policy violations, and defamation. Word spread quickly around the neighborhood. Suddenly, the people who avoided me were now nodding politely again. One even brought me a pie and apologized for believing her lies. Karen. She put her house up for sale not long after, moving closer to family, she claimed. Sure. All I know is this, I stood my ground. I didn't let a liar ruin my name. And in the end, truth, along with a Bluetooth tracker, saved me from becoming another silent victim of an HOA tyrant. Because sometimes, the craziest neighbor on the block is the one holding a clipboard and smiling just a little too hard. And if you're enjoying this crazy story so far, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment below telling me what part shocked you the most, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insane HOA and Karen stories just like this one. Alright, let's get back to it.